Exposed. 3 haunting months after 64 minutes went missing, my children begged for forgiveness in the rain. The rain poured like a dark curtain over Maplewood, blanketing the town in despair. Whispers spun like frantic leaves in the wind, with citizens gathering in small knots under poorly lit streetlights, their faces twisted in suspicion. And me? I was a single mother, Jessica Harper, a librarian trying to hold together a life that was fraying at the seams. My heart raced, not just for my tight-knit community, but for the rift that had grown between my children Emily and Jake and me. In the shadows of that downpour, a shocking scandal erupted. 64 million had vanished from the town's trust fund money that was meant to breathe life into our schools and nurture community programs. It was gone, just like that. The more I tried to sift through the tangled mess of old town records at the library, the more I stumbled upon cryptic messages and eerie artifacts that hinted at a chilling connection to the abandoned mansion outside of town. Its towering walls loomed like a sentinel, watching over us, the sinister legacy of a businessman who whispered his dark secrets into the wind. As I sorted through the crumbling papers one stormy afternoon, my pulse quickened. In faded ink, phrases jumped out at me. Buried truths, souls unavenged. I felt a presence behind me, but there was no one there. The air thickened, thick like honey, suffocating and sinister. The clarity of the world around me faded, replaced by a blurry line of terrifying possibilities. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with the town brimming with distrust. I stood before the prospect of organizing a meeting to bring us together, the joy of community dwindling into shadows of doubt. My heart twisted as memories of my children returned to me, haunted by the betrayal we all felt, not just in our home, but in the whispers of a town once proud and now trembling in fear. Emily and Jake had only just returned, their frustrations bubbling to the surface, each dealing with their own demons. They began to see apparitions in their childhood home, figures cloaked in the darkness, demanding justice, echoing their anger with chilling urgency. Each new day slid by like the rain-soaked streets, heavy and thick with the weight of our past. Would we face our family's tumultuous history head-on and confront the darkness embedded in that mansion? Or would we crumble under the weight of shame and fear? As I stared at the mansion one fateful night, its windows glistening like hollow eyes, the weight of our path twisted around my throat. The winds howled, carrying voices from the past, begging to be heard. I knew the truth awaited us, a truth that could tear us apart, yet perhaps set us free. With Emily and Jake at my side, the decision loomed like an unyielding mist. Together, we took a step towards that malevolent threshold, feeling the ground tremble beneath our feet, knowing that the story whispered betrayed lives might just be beginning. The air was thick as we approached the old mansion, each step sinking into the damp earth that clung to our shoes like an anchor. An oppressive weight pressed against my chest, a feeling that would not lift until I understood the truths buried in this shadowy place. The moon, cloaked by racing clouds, barely illuminated our path, leaving us wrestling against the creeping dark. Emily's hand trembled as she clutched mine. "Mom, do we really have to do this? What if it's still there?" Her words hung in the air like the fog that threatened to swallow us whole. I could only nod, fighting the rising anxiety twisting in my gut. Jake walked a few paces ahead, staring into the distance like a soldier braving enemy lines. His face was a mask of rage and fear, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. The loud bang echoed from inside. The sound cracked through the night, bouncing off the mansion's walls, igniting every hair on my body. We froze. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, his eyes wide. The mansion had always stood still like a giant sleeping, its secrets locked away, but now it pulsed with unexplained life. "Let us go," I commanded, trying to mask the quiver in my voice. We rushed toward the door, a heavy thing wrapped in age and despair. I pushed it, and it creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway. the stench of mold and decay flooding our senses. "Stay close," I instructed. With each step inside, the memories came rushing back, not just of the mansion, but of the lies and broken pieces that had formed our family. The chill gnawed at our backs, whispering words of regret. Every creak of wood, every rustle of the wind sent shivers down our spines like unseen hands reaching for us. "Mom, look!" Emily gasped, her voice barely a whisper. The ground was littered with old newspapers, faded headlines screaming out tales of betrayal and lost stories of the town that had thrived only to be uprooted by greed and treachery. "Mayor files for bankruptcy," Jake muttered, his voice devoid of hope. "And here the forgotten ones. Local legend or truth?" He crinkled the yellowed paper against the dim light. "Did you know about this?" I didn't. I hesitated, the weight of my ignorance crashing over me like the rain outside. Was I the one ignoring our history, or had I simply been too focused on keeping our day-to-day life afloat? The shadows around us flickered, and a gust of wind shot through the hallway, extinguishing the flickering light. Panic surged. "We need to go," I urged, gripping my children's hands tightly. But it was too late. Before I could turn back to the door, a figure emerged from the swirling shadows, a silhouette adorned in rags, face obscured. "You shouldn't have come here. You've awakened what has long been asleep." A cold chill washed over me, and as I looked at my children, I saw their faces pale with fear, and we all understood the night would not end quietly. With trembling hearts, we stepped deeper into the darkness, our journey far from over. What awaited us in this wretched place? Whatever it was, I felt it pull us closer, beckoning with the promise of revelations that could spiral into madness. And just as that fear took hold, the door slammed shut behind us, sealing our fate. What haunting truths still lay hidden in the shadows? The air grew even colder, thick with a silence that roared in our ears. The figure stood motionless, cloaked in a shroud of despair and anger that twisted around it like smoke. My heart raced as I tightened my grip around Emily and Jake, who both trembled against me, their faces reflecting raw fear. "Who are you?" I heard myself demand, though my voice barely rose above a whisper. My throat felt dry, weighted down by the horrors echoing from within the mansion's walls. "No one who should matter to you," the figure replied, a voice like shards of glass scratching against my eardrums. "But you have opened the door to the past, and now it demands to be seen." I swallowed hard. The memories of this place returned to me, the whispers of scandal, betrayal, secrets heavy enough to crush lives. I had pushed those memories aside for years, trying to raise my children away from these ghosts, but it was evident they were far from gone. "Why do you have to haunt us?" Jake shouted, stepping forward defiantly, though his voice quivered. "You think we're afraid?" "Afraid?" The figure cackled, a sound that echoed through the shadows. "This is not about fear. This is about the truth buried beneath the floorboards of your family's past, the truth that has been clawing its way back to the surface." The walls seemed to shudder with the weight of its words, as if the very bones of the mansion were groaning under the burden of untold stories. I felt the cold seep through to my bones. Somewhere deep in that darkness, I had the nagging fear that the figure would expose us all, my failures laid bare before my children. "What truth?" I demanded, pulling my children closer. They huddled against me, eyes wide, the fear palpable. "It is not you that needs to know," it said slowly, taking a step closer, revealing glimpses of its face, pale, hollowed eyes, and a mouth twisted into an eternal grimace. "But them. They deserve to see what paths their ancestry has paved." "Don't!" I yelled, my voice echoing through the musty corridor. "This isn't their burden. It's mine." The figure erupted in laughter that rang hollow in the dark. "You cannot shield them from their history. The past does not remain buried. It festers." Just then, thunder rumbled, shaking the very foundations of the mansion. A frantic energy crackled through the air, and I could sense a storm brewing not only outside, but within us. The shadows deepened, thickening around us, swallowing pieces of the world that felt all too real just moments before. Jake's hands squeezed mine, his face pale as terror danced in his eyes. "What do we do, Mom?" The plea in his voice tore through me. Here we were, three frightened souls engulfed in the heart of a tempest, surrounded by echoes of a dark history that sought to claim us. "You need to face it," the figure hissed. "Face the darkness within and without. Only then can you find freedom. Emily took a trembling breath, glancing at me. A flicker of resolve ignited in her blue eyes. Mom, we have to know what happened. No, I protested, feeling the weight of 100 regrets crashing down on me. It might destroy us. The only way to escape its hold is to confront it, the figure said, lowering its voice to a whisper that seemed to seep into the very essence of who we were. Draw forth the truth, and you may find the light within. With a shaky breath, I looked into my children's eyes, unsure if I was asking them to face a demon or their own heritage. We stood together, united in our vulnerability an inch away from the abyss. Yet an inexplicable force pulled us closer. As the shadows pulsated and the air held an electric tension, I understood that our choice lingered in the pulse of night. With a crack of lightning illuminating the darkness, I knew what lay ahead would either shatter or heal us. And with that realization, we took our first step deeper into the dark. What awaited us beyond that threshold? Pain, revelation, or even redemption? The moment we crossed that threshold, the air shifted, growing heavier, thicker, like swimming through fog. The figure loomed behind us, a sentinel to our fear, its presence coiling around us tighter with each step we took into the darkness. Lightning again split the sky, illuminating a swirling vortex of shadows that beckoned us deeper into the unknown. I glanced back at Emily and Jake. Their faces were frozen in a mix of terror and determination, the kind of expressions that could shatter a heart. Stay close, I whispered, trying to inject some warmth into the icy grip of the atmosphere. Where are we going? Jake stammered, his voice wavering. To find the truth, I said, though uncertainty wrapped around my own heart. What truth lay ahead? What monsters hid in the kaleidoscope of our family's past? With trepidation, we stepped further into the maw of the mansion. The walls narrowed, closing in as the air thickened with a pungent scent musty and stale, like the decay of long-forgotten memories. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering to life with every pulse of dim lightning that illuminated our path. At the end of the corridor, a door loomed, its surface marred and chipped. I hesitated, placing a trembling hand on the doorknob that felt like ice against my skin. It was a portal to everything I'd tried to shield my children from. The ancestral sins, the heartbreak, the devastation, it was all contained behind that door. What if there's nothing but horror? Emily asked, her voice trembling with an edge I could hear even through the growing thunder outside. Then we face it together, I replied, attempting to sound braver than I felt. This was not just my battle, it was for all of us. I turned the knob, its hinge creaking loudly enough to drown out the thunder, and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was dimly lit, with faded portraits lining the walls, the faces of those who had come before us. Their eyes seemed to follow us, an audience to our fears. At the center of the room was a table, strewn with old letters and documents that seemed to whisper secrets from a time long past. My breath caught in my throat. What is this? I muttered, stepping forward. The remnants of lives unlived, of choices made. The figure's voice resonated from the shadows, echoing within me. Each piece is a thread of the tapestry that binds you to your family's fate. My hands shook as I reached for a yellowed envelope, its seal cracked, like an ancient barrier slowly being undone. With each word I read, it stung deeper than I could have imagined. Betrayals, lost love, even death danced across the pages, painting a picture of a family steeped in tragedy. Emily gasped, gripping Jake's arm tightly. Mom, this is awful. Her voice cracked, and I could see the weight of history pressing down on her small shoulders. No, we can't. We shouldn't be seeing this. I was desperate now, my heart pounding with terror, a fierce instinct to protect my children rearing its head. The past is unrelenting, the figure warned, taking a step closer, shadows swirling around it like a storm. Its hold will either free you or bind you forever. Decide. Gathering all my courage, I straightened. We want to know. We need to know. With a fierce determination, I waved my hand, signaling them to come closer to the table that now felt like the altar of our family's reckoning. We were sinking deeper into a pit of darkness, forced to glimpse the skeletons that had haunted our lineage. This is our story, I said softly, trying to anchor myself in a sea of chaos. And we'll navigate through it together. But as I spoke those hopeful words, the figures in the portraits began to shift. Their mouths twisted, contorting as though trying to speak a chorus of the damned rising to the surface. At that moment, panic clawed at my chest as I blurted, "What do you want from us?" Their eyes narrowed with intent as the thunder outside erupted in a deafening roar as the shadows swallowed the room. The answer began to emerge from the darkness, revealing that what I feared most was only just beginning to unravel. Could we withstand this storm, or would the past drown us in its wake? The shadows seemed to throb with a life of their own, writhing against the dim light. My heart raced as I watched the figures in the portraits twist and turn, their expressions morphing into grotesque masks of anger and despair. I barely had a moment to catch my breath before the atmosphere shifted again, a chilling breeze sweeping through the room, freezing, suffocating. "Mom, what are they trying to say?" Jake's voice was barely a whisper. I could see the fear etched across his face, his eyes wide and searching, reflecting a horror that mirrored my own. "I don't know," I breathed, struggling to take in air past the tightness in my chest. The thick tension swirled like smoke, consuming everything in its path. Suddenly, the figure in the shadows drew closer, its features sharpening until I could make out a shape, a woman draped in a gown that shimmered like the dusk, her face lined with both ethereal beauty and the unmistakable heaviness of sorrow. "Your lineage is stained," she echoed, her voice a cadence of anguish that resonated deep within my bones. "You have a choice, but know this: ignorance will bind you tighter than any truth ever could." "Please," I said, desperation clawing at my throat. "We just want to understand. We want to break free." The woman's keen eyes bore into mine, a smoldering intensity. "To uncover, you must confront. Only then can you liberate your family's legacy." With that, she gestured to the envelope I clutched, as if it held the very key to our salvation or our doom. With shaky fingers, I opened the letter fully. My mind struggled to piece together the scrawled words, but they echoed like a funeral dirge in my head. "The sins of the father," I read aloud, and it felt like an incantation. The room trembled, the portraits vibrating as if resonating with the memory of those long gone. "Mom," Emily whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "We shouldn't. What if we're not ready for this?" "We have to be," I replied, although a cold part of me clung to the fear that perhaps she was right. Was there such a thing as being too late? Just as I contemplated retreating, a loud crash resonated through the darkness, throwing the shadows into chaos. The storm outside raged, winds howling like a pack of wolves. The ground beneath us shook, and I could feel the walls closing in, urging us to make a decision. The precipice of our fate lay before us, uninviting and ominous. "Open it," the figure urged, the softness of her voice now tinged with steel. "Or let the past claim you." I looked at my children, each of them clutching onto each other as if they could physically shield one another from the darkness encroaching around us. My heart shattered at the thought of allowing them to face this alone. We had to face it together, without evasions or excuses. There was power in truth, even if it twisted like a knife. "Together, we can do this," I said firmly, gripping the envelope tighter. That a sudden silence enveloped us like a thick fog. Emily and Jake leaned in, breaths held in suspense, hearts in sync with mine. The moment felt surreal, a point of stillness before the storm. My voice trembled as I said, what if we're stronger than the past?" With resolution, I tore the envelope open fully, and as I unfolded the contents, a force rippled through the room. The shadows roared, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed a truth that sent shockwaves through my core. Just as I began to read, the air thickened, and I heard a cry, no, a scream piercing through the darkness, echoing in my ears like a warning. The secrets had teeth, and they were hungry. What awaited us in the shadows? Would we emerge whole or utterly shattered? The scream echoed, shattering the tense silence that had cocooned us, raw and haunting. My fingers froze mid-motion, gripping the letter tighter as a visceral chill swept through the room. Jake flinched, his eyes darting around, searching for the source of the sound, while Emily squeezed her brother's hand, trembling. "Mom, please," Jake pleaded, his voice quivering. "What was that?" I felt the weight of the woman's gaze, unwavering as if she beckoned us deeper into a dark abyss. Underneath the terror, a flicker of awareness ignited. We needed to read this letter, to unravel the tale woven into our family's history, no matter how beastly it may seem. With a deep breath, I unfolded the letter completely, the paper crinkling ominously in our electric silence. Words swirled into focus, each one a resonating bomb, setting off in my mind a narrative demanding to be heard. The sins of the father are not easily buried, it read, a push into the dark corners I had tried so hard to forget. Stop! The ghostly figure cried, and the room trembled. Her beauty was wild and urgent, as if the shadows lived in her very being, threatening to pull her back into their murkiness. You dare to unearth what should remain hidden? What do you mean? I shot back, my voice unexpectedly steely despite the throbbing terror inside me. These are our lives, the truths of our lineage. We need to know. Her sharp intake of breath sent ripples of dread through the air. To uncover the truth is to announce its existence. What was whispered in the darkness will cleave into the light, and the consequences are far-reaching. I lowered the letter and glanced at my children. Voices filled with a dread that felt like clawing nails echoed in my heart. We can't turn back now, I whispered, newfound determination surging within me. I could either shield them from what was behind the veil or arm them against it. The latter felt like my only option. Raising the letter, I began reading aloud. My voice trembled with a thick urgency. Underneath the moonlight of sorrow, your ancestors forged bonds of blood and betrayal. Moments of bliss intertwined with agony. As I read, the shadows pulsed, contorting, clawing at the edges of the light surrounding us. The portraits seemed to lean closer, almost alive, as though they were relishing our suffering. I wasn't just telling a story. I was drawing them out, awakening nightmares that had long slept. Mom, please. Jake's voice chipped through the thickening tension. His wide eyes reflected unease, and I felt the crushing weight of our ancestral darkness pressing down on us. But determination morphed into desperation as the air grew heavier. From the corner of my eye, I saw a movement, a flicker that twisted my stomach. I turned to see a shadow stretching and elongating, forming a figure from the dark. Enough! The woman shrieked, her voice a blend of pain and fury, washing over us like a tsunami. You think you can control what comes from the past? It will consume you all. In that moment, the room shuddered violently, furniture toppling, and the walls seemed to bend inward. The pale light flickered, illuminating a monstrous face within the shadows, fanged and hungry, ready to feed on our fear. Run! I shouted, shoving my children towards the door, but the darkness roiled like a storm, making movement treacherous. Every breath felt charged with terror, the air practically humming with danger, but just as fast as it begun, the tempest faded to a whisper, leaving only echoes in its wake. Trembling hands reached out to me, seeking comfort and truth, but the shadows still loomed, waiting. What was that? Emily gasped, her voice trembling, eyes wide and glistening that I couldn't answer. I felt the truth bite back, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. What had we awakened? What ancient force demanded our attention, lurking just beneath the fabric of our lives? Fear drummed loud in my heart, and as I attempted to steady myself, I realized we were not just digging into our past, we were challenging it. We have to keep going, I breathed, heart pounding like war drums. But what if the truth is worse than we can handle? And then, from the back of my mind, a creeping thought emerged. What if it wasn't just our lineage that was at stake, but our very souls? Next, we would face the wrath of the past, and everything would change. Would we even survive the onslaught of revelation, or would we be swept under the tide of truth, never to return? The air crackled around us, thick with anticipation and dread. I could see the shadows shift, like a breath drawn in the dark, waiting for the moment to strike. Jake and Emily were pressed against me, their small bodies trembling, lost in the growing tempest of our terrifying ancestral revelations. Mom, can we just go? Jake whispered, the fear in his voice a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. No, I shot back, too harshly, realizing my mistake as their eyes widened. The truth was clawing its way out, demanding to be set free. We had opened the door, and I couldn't close it now, not when the stakes felt so high. I drew a deep breath, forcing the air to fill my lungs. The shadows twisted and shifted, cloaked in phantoms of those lost to time. We can't back down, I implored, my voice steadier. We need to understand what haunts us. We need to know. The grotesque face in the darkness danced closer, its features grotesque and twisted, a mockery of humanity. Yet amidst the terror, there was something familiar, a tinge of recognition that sent chills down my spine. I recalled stories from my childhood, tales of lost family members who had succumbed to their secrets. "Tell us what you want," I shouted, gripping the letter tighter, the words seeping into my veins, awakening a grim resolve. "If you have something to say, scream it." Suddenly, the shadows swirled violently, and the silence shattered as the woman's wailing echoed through the room. It felt like a plea for redemption, a tangled mess of agony and despair that cut through us, leaving a raw ache in my chest. "Your blood is tied to my suffering," she shrieked, each word laced with rage and pain. "I am the echo of your choices. You dare call forth the darkness without comprehending the weight of your lineage? What choices?" Jake shouted, desperation leaking into his tone. "What terrible thing did we do?" The room trembled, and the portrait eyes grew wider, dripping with an otherworldly glow. The shadows thrummed as I felt a chill trace the nape of my neck. "This isn't just history," I cried, urgency thrumming through my heart. "We're not just learning about the past." "Then know this," she seethed, her form blurring yet remaining terrifyingly beautiful. "What you awaken may bring down upon you a darkness deeper than you comprehend." With that, the chaos erupted. Cracks spiderwebbed along the walls, debris began to fall, and I instinctively wrapped my arms protectively around my children, pulling them close. "Stay together," I warned, feeling desperation tighten like a noose around my breath. The room felt alive, vicious and foreboding, the shadows writhing as if they were angry serpents ready to strike. Just then, another thunderous shriek pierced the air, but it wasn't just the ghostly figure's voice. It was a mournful sound, unlike anything I had ever heard, reverberating from the walls themselves. I turned, peering into the darkness, and saw a flicker of movement, a blinding flash illuminating an inscription carved into the wall, a chilling warning. "Beware the price of truth. Some secrets demand blood." Fear surged through me, and I faced my children, their faces pale and wide-eyed. This was more than just a curse. This could trip our lives into a spiral of despair. "What if we can't handle it?" I murmured, grasping Jake's shoulders as he shivered. "What if we lose everything?" A breath caught in my throat, and I could see in their eyes that they feared the unknown just as much as I did. The cavernous weight of expectation pressed down on us, and I swallowed hard. "Mom, look." Emily pointed toward the letter still clutched in my hand. Words began to shift, as if alive, twisting into something new, something more grotesque. They morphed into a cruel demand, beckoning me to read further. "What does it say?" Jake asked, his voice shaking, edging on panic as time slipped like sand. "There's no turning back now," I whispered, my heart racing. What had we stumbled into? And as I read the new words emerging upon the page, a chilling thought struck me. Were we meant to be the sacrifice tethered by the sins of those before us? In that very moment, a realization hit me, sending shockwaves through my being. The past was alive, and it was hungry. What sacrifices did it seek from us? With horror clutching my throat, I braced for the undeniable truth awaiting in the lines, knowing our very existence now hung by a thread woven from the darkness. "Proceed," but no came the echo chillingly soft. "Blood binds, and blood is always the cost." Next, we would unearth what lurked behind history's veil, for better or worse, and perhaps face the tragic price waiting for our intrusions into a past eager for revenge. Would we stand united, or would the darkness tear us apart? The words on the page blazed like coals, drawing me in deeper. I could almost feel the pulsing menace radiating off them, setting my skin on fire with dread. "Lies," I breathed. That was the fate we had unwittingly beckoned. The shadows seemed to pulse in response, a swirling vortex of unholy energy, taunting us as if it knew we could never truly fathom what was to come. "Mom, please." Emily's voice trembled, breaking me from my stupor. "What does it say? We have to know." I inhaled sharply, forcing myself to read aloud, my voice quaking in the weight of what the letter seemed to demand. You must claim your inheritance," I stammered through lips that felt dry and cracked, "or face the retribution for your lineage's betrayal." As the echo of my words filled the room, A low growl seemed to seep from the cracks in the floor, and the walls trembled, responding to ancient anger. It was as if the house itself was alive, breathing with a life forged in secrets and regrets. Your lineage? Jake's eyes widened, the implications hitting him hard. He turned to me, his face a canvas of confusion and terror. What did Grandma do? Don't ask, I wanted to scream. But something deeper inside compelled me to answer. I don't know, but we need to understand. Whatever this is, it ties us to something dark. Lightning flashed outside, casting eerie shadows that danced like dark specters around the room. In that moment, I felt it, a compulsion to know the truth, as if the very air whispered promises of power and clarity. But at what cost? Mom, Emily pressed, her voice now full of urgency. I saw how she clutched her brother's hand, the trembling desperate. It angered me to feel their fear, but it only reminded me of my own. I had to be strong. With a renewed sense of purpose, I zeroed in on the inscription, forcing my eyes to glean more meaning from its cryptic message. Claim your inheritance suddenly. A shattering sound erupted, the glass of the nearby window fracturing under unseen tension. Stay down, I shouted, instinctively pushing my children behind me. We huddled, the very fabric of our reality unraveling around us. The wailing crescendoed until it morphed into a high-pitched keening, churning over us like storm waves ready to swallow us whole. I couldn't tell what was more terrifying, the wails or the deafening silence that followed. Is it gone? Jake whispered, trembling against me. No. The single word slithered out from somewhere shadowy and deep, echoing across the empty air like a chime heralding death. As if on cue, a figure began to emerge through the chaos. The ethereal woman, the one from the portrait, materialized before us, her face an amalgamation of grief and fury. I could barely breathe as she came closer, her voice sliding into my mind like ice. You think you can escape your blood? Your choices echo through the ages, she hissed, her eyes locking onto my children. Choices that demand an offering. Panic surged in my veins. I fought to protect them with every ounce of my being. No, you won't touch them, I screamed, stepping in front of my children, channeling every ounce of a mother's strength. You will regret this defiance, she seethed, and with a wave of her hand, shadows extended towards the children, clawing for them like ghostly tendrils. No, I lunged forward, reaching desperately, but the tendrils halted just inches from their skin, flickering with a malevolent hunger. Your fate is not sealed yet, she whispered menacingly, her essence swirling around us. But you must choose. Will you bear the darkness or let it consume you? As I trembled in that vortex of fury and sorrow, the stakes blew wide open. Sacrifice? It wasn't just my life at risk, it was theirs too. Mom, please. Jake's plea cut through the madness, deepening my resolve even as the shadows closed in. With a final forceful whisper, a desperate, united vow, I looked into my children's eyes. Whatever it takes, we will face this together. The shadows bellowed in outrage, and a deafening roar filled the air as the walls vibrated violently. Our intertwined fates now hung in limbo, teetering on the edge of darkness. As my stomach coiled with anxiety, I couldn't shake the answer that flashed through my mind. What had we done to unleash this nightmare? And how far would I go to protect those I loved? With the room dissolving around us in a chaos, one thought lingered, twisting in my gut like a serpent. The reckoning was only just beginning, and we were standing at the precipice, teetering over a chasm of despair. Now we had to confront the very essence of our lineage, and the price was about to be revealed. The shadows lunged forward, their icy tendrils grazing my skin, sending shockwaves of dread rippling through me. I could feel the darkness reaching for Jake and Emily, drawn to their innocence like moths to a flame. The ethereal woman stood there, her face morphed into an expression that blended anger with deep sorrow. An uncomfortable chill wrapped itself tightly around my heart. This wasn't just a curse, it was a plea for blood. Mom, help! Emily screamed, her voice shrill and frantic. I clenched my fists, summoning every ounce of courage to shield them from the void edging closer. I felt my breath catch, a lump forming in my throat as I glared at the apparition. Leave them alone, I bellowed, my voice ricocheting off the walls like a desperate echo. The shadows recoiled slightly, and for a brief moment, the room fell silent, thick and suffocating, as if the very air was holding its breath. "You do not understand," the woman hissed, her voice smooth yet laced with venom. "The shadows crave your family's essence. You cannot merely fight them. You must confront the sins of your ancestors." Her declaration sent cuts of ice racing down my spine. Ancestors? What sins? I wanted to scream at her to reveal everything, but my children clung to me tighter, their worries spilling over like a raging river. Suddenly, the darkness retracted as if the very energy of the house inhaled sharply. I caught sight of the ornate mirror above the fireplace, reflecting a distorted image of our fear. But then something caught my eye, a flicker of light, a hint of motion behind the glass, revealing figures long buried. "Mom, what's wrong?" Jake asked, his voice shivering, laden with worry. With a tragic dread, I stepped closer to the mirror, feeling its pull, an echo of the past tugging at my consciousness. Memories I didn't even know I had began to bleed into my mind. Faces contorted in agony, pleading for light, yearning for redemption. "Are they trapped?" I stammered, locking eyes with the apparition. The woman's expression softened just for a moment. "Trapped, yes, but seeking freedom. The choice must be yours: embrace your heritage and break the curse, or allow darkness to claim you." As if my heart had cracked open, images flooded in. My grandmother, her expression fierce yet haunting, her own battles with the very shadows I now faced. We weren't merely victims. We were part of a lineage tied to regret. Each choice rippled through our family like a chant, echoing a terrifying history that needed facing. "I want to sacrifice my kids," I whispered, tears forming in the corners of my eyes. I wrapped my arms around them tightly, as if our combined warmth could stave off the monstrous chill surrounding us. Pain twisted through me at the thought of surrendering to the past, but confronting it seemed even worse. The shadows started to swirl again, whipping around us, their presence growing thick and oppressive. "No, I refuse to let you take them," I shouted defiantly, fighting against the overwhelming wave crashing over us. In that moment of desperation, a primal urge surged within me, a desire to flick the switch, to turn the tide. I would not allow my family to be devoured by the ambitions of the past. "Mom," Emily cried again, her fear sharp and penetrating. I could feel the shadows tightening their grip, and then came the whisper, a dark promise that I would need to satisfy their craving. Swallowing hard, I called out, "Then tell me, what offering do you want?" The woman's grin stretched wide, revealing the torment I had underestimated. "The heart of one who bears the legacy," she breathed, her voice a silky promise. A gut-wrenching realization swept over me. But could I risk it? A shiver traveled through the room as the shadows swelled, sensing my indecision. Just then, a vision burst into clarity. A decision had to be made. My head spun with the stakes. My children paying the price, or me embracing whatever darkness this legacy demanded. With the shadows twisting and my heart pounding, I knew the moment had come. The cost was escalating, fraught with danger, and the children weren't the only ones in peril. What I would choose next could ignite or destroy our future forever. Clutching my children tighter, I let the question hang in the air like a knife. How far would I go to protect them? And was I prepared to face the consequences of a legacy I barely understood? With darkness closing in, I felt the pull of inevitability and the dread of the answers waiting just behind the mirror. The shadows swirled around us, thicker than fog, clinging to my skin like a haunting memory. My heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. Silence wrapped around us, heavy and thick, only to be shattered by the voice of the woman whose beauty twisted into something sinister. "You must choose at a cost." Her words sliced through the darkness, casting a chilling echo that seemed to reverberate through the very walls of the mansion. "Face the lineage you share, or remain prisoners in this cursed cycle." "Mom, we can't." Jake's voice trembled, a raw fear lacing the edges of his plea. I could feel Emily's grip tightening on my arm, her small fingers like a lifeline to sanity amidst the storm. "We have to," I whispered, though doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for us anymore. We were tangled in the legacy of our family, bound to what had come before it. I drew a shaky breath, forcing myself to look into Emily's and Jake's eyes. This isn't just about us. It's about breaking free from the horror that holds our family captive. The weight of my truth settled on my chest, but compassion sparked in their gaze, a shared understanding blossoming. Together, I echoed, my courage stiffening like steel. To face what was hidden, the shadows pulsed, flickering in response. Surrounding us in an uproar, screams of anguish erupted and echoed through the mansion's corridors, reverberating against the walls as figures emerged from the depths of darkness. Their faces shifted like smoke, informational hints unraveling along with the polished veneer of our perceptions. If you wish to unearth the ghosts within, embrace your sacrifice, the apparition commanded, gliding gracefully forward, her form blurring as she moved. But remember, one must bear the weight of what is unleashed. No, I shouted, feeling a surge of defiance. Not my children. They won't pay for sins they didn't commit. The room trembled with outrage at my assertion as the shadows hissed like wild serpents, seeking to punish my defiance. Just then, a cold gust of wind rolled through the room, engulfing me in chilling silence. Faces emerged in the mirror, twisted with pain and sorrow, the sorrowful echoes of my ancestors pleading for redemption. "Mom, those are your choices," Jacob interjected, eyes wide, quaking under the influence of terror and truth. The burden of his words crushed me. His courage was a mirror reflecting what was to come, and I felt the hysteria stretching across the invisible thread tying our fates. "Then set them free," I murmured, a desperate prayer clawing at my throat, if answering my call. The ghostly woman narrowed her eyes, her expression shifting into something akin to sympathy mingled with contempt. "You wish for freedom? Then a price must be paid. What you uncover may tear you apart or weave you anew. Tell us what to do," Emily shouted, her voice ringing with determination that sparked a flame within me. It felt as if the shadows stilled, intrigued by the sudden courage igniting our hearts. "Face what binds you to the past," the apparition echoed, almost pleading. "The binding threads of your ancestors shall either shackle you or lead to liberation." With a deep breath, I grabbed the letter, its words carrying the weight of ancestral wrongs yet untold. "We will face it together," I declared, my voice unwavering, as thunder rolled outside, a turbulent reminder of the storm within. The shadow breathed as if a sentient creature and recoiled with newfound rage. In that moment, I understood we were lighting the fire of confrontation, demanding reverberations, shaking the very foundation of our reality. "Together, we will expose the truth," I declared with ferocious resolve. "No longer will we run. No longer will we let fear dictate our legacy." As I said those words, energy crackled like electricity around us. The walls rattled, shattering flickering shadows into the air, breaking from the confines that had held them captive for centuries. "Stand with me," I commanded, pulling Jake and Emily closer, our bond fortifying a shield against the forces we had awakened. "Face what has haunted us for too long." With that, the air shifted, thick and potent as darkness roared against us, clawing desperately to pull us back into the void from which it had emerged. But we stood firm, united against the tide. My heart raced, a wild drum echoing the promise of battle that I thrust the letter forward, reading aloud the remnants of our family's legacy, each word an incantation igniting souls longing to be released. Generations have suffered, tethered to the sins of the past. We seek understanding, not vengeance. My voice rumbled, gathering momentum against the chaos. The specter wailed, an anguished cry, and I saw the energy within the shadows begin to fracture as if every scream unraveled the hold on my children. In that fevered moment, with sheer defiance, I reached into my own heart, surrendering what scares me most, my own inherited darkness. "I forsake this legacy," I yelled into the tempest. "In the name of my children and the love that binds us, we will break the cycle, free of the past." Then came an exhalation, a forceful release that tore through the layers of darkness engulfing us, like a gust breaking through a suffocating fog. The shadows writhed and flared, escaping the weight of history held at bay. Light flooded the room as a fierce wind whirled around us, lifting away the veil that had trapped our truth for generations. I grasped my children's hands tighter, their strength swirling into me, forging an unbreakable bond, against all odds. And in that surge of light, illuminated by truths finally revealed, I felt a shift, a release. The dark mistress of the mansion shrieked, the walls shuddered, and the shadows faded, vanishing into whispers of what remained. As the last remnants of darkness faded, I tightened my arms around Emily and Jake, feeling renewed in the wake of everything we had faced together. The shadows behind us drifted away, leaving behind only echoes of pain transformed into a quiet but promising calm. We did it, I breathed, the words a gentle promise illuminating the dim corners of the mansion once again. Our very breaths mingled with freedom at last. With the past laid bare, we took our first steps toward a new dawn. The weight of our lineage wouldn't define us, but it would guide us forward. Together, we could weave a different story, one of resilience, strength, and love. As I held my children close, a lump in my throat swelled with a soft hope, a connection forged through confrontation, our future glistening in the light of hard-earned truths. The mansion behind us fell silent, no longer a burden, but a testament to everything we had overcome. Taking one last look at the desolate place, we turned to leave a future wide open ahead, no longer shackled by shadows, but filled with potential and promises yet to come. And as we stepped together into the rain, the clouds cleared, revealing a galaxy of stars, a universe made bright once more. Now, more than ever, I realized this was just our beginning. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. So let us keep the fire burning.